The landmarks of the United States are symbols of history, culture, and recreation for many. Many appear on our money, stamps, among other things, and serve as symbols of a given area in the country. Regardless of how historic or beloved they may be though, circumstances beyond control mean they don't last forever. These are the lost and endangered landmarks of America. First, we have the Old Man of the Mountain. There aren't too many landmarks in America more closely associated with a given state than this one. It can be found on state license plates, it can be found on state road signs, and in 2000 it was placed on U.S. currency to represent the state. This 1,200-foot mountain from its base would serve as you could say the state's own Mount Rushmore, a granite silhouette visible from thousands of feet away. However, the very same processes that would bring this landmark into existence would also eventually be its undoing. While it would be a great symbol for the state and tourism stop for generations, warning signs of its demise would come far before its final fate. As early as the 1910s, the rock face would begin to succumb to the challenges of weathering, and work would begin to try to stabilize it. Over the decades, cables, rods, seals, and chains would hold the Old Man together, until in May of 2003, just 3 years after being commemorated on the state quarter, the Old Man would collapse. Today, a plaza exists where one can line up a metal feature and get an idea of what the Old Man looked like on the mountain. While it has been gone for over 20 years now, its imagery can still constantly be found throughout the state. Next, we have another historic landmark that was commemorated on a state quarter, and that is the Charter Oak. This tree was already possibly 800 years old when it was discovered by the English colonists in the 1600s. It became known under this name due to the fact that a royal charter was hidden inside of it, which had given Connecticut colonial residents some independence from England. While the hiding of the document did not keep Connecticut's rights from being taken away, it did survive and exists to this day, and played an important role in the development of the state of Connecticut. Its namesake oak tree, however, was not so lucky. By the 1850s, the tree was believed to be 1,000 years old, and had survived long enough to see the invention of the photograph, to which it would be photographed possibly for its first and only time in 1855, just a year before its destruction. The following year, a storm would bring it down. Though it has been gone for over 150 years, many trees were planted with the acorns from it, some that still exist today. It was further memorialized in 1999 when it would become the image on Connecticut's state quarter. Next, we have a railroad bridge that would come crashing down into a valley. The Kino Bridge was originally built in the early 1880s and stood just over 300 feet over the valley below in north-central Pennsylvania. In 1900, due to increasing weights of trains, the bridge would be rebuilt, and this steel viaduct would carry them all the way until 1959. After being idled for some time, 10 years after becoming a landmark in 1977, in 1987 it would begin to carry a scenic train over it. This would continue for 15 years until it was determined that the bridge would need to be restored. This would begin in 2003, and it was during this restoration that the bridge would see its end, at least in its complete form. In July of that year, the bridge would be hit by an F1 tornado, and much of it would collapse to the ground. While this historic bridge was no more, a large portion of what didn't collapse was preserved and turned into what is today known as the Kino Skywalk, preserving the memory of this once great landmark. And finally, we have an endangered landmark. Located in western Nebraska, Chimney Rock was one of the most famous stops on the Oregon Trail. This famous landmark, which is now preserved by the National Park Service, stands over 300 feet tall over the Great Plains. It was, however, much taller than it is today. In just 150 years' time, 30 feet of the rock's height has been lost from the effects of lightning and erosion. 5 feet alone were lost in the early 1990s due to just one lightning strike. Regardless of the millions of years it took for this landmark to form, it's unknown how much longer it can still maintain its classic appearance over the Great Plains. Thank you for watching.